We all love magic. Do you? And this afternoon, I'm going to share with you the magic of persuasion. And I wonder, Raju, where were you in 1978? Yes, I do. Or riding a bike through college. I was in high school then, fourth year high school, and I was so shocked when I heard this story. 1978, Jim Jones, Guyana, South America. With the power of persuasion, he was able to convince 900 people, one third of them innocent children, to give up their lives. Imagine the magic and the power of persuasion. Let's move forward. 8 years, no longer South America, right here in the Philippines, 1986. 2 million people formed an impenetrable sea of creature. They went out of their comfort zone because of the voice of one man. See the magic of persuasion. And I do know that because I was one of the guys who blocked some of the tanks, and I was ready to give my life. And soon I asked myself, who told me to do that? It was the power of persuasion. And let's discover what other powers the persuasion has. Very recently, I saw this news. Man beaten by his wife, hospitalized. Why? It was their first wedding anniversary, and he forgot it. First wedding. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, two stories that we can all relate to. One story tells us this is the new bliss. If we take our lives all together, we will be able to find solution. We will forget all the pains that we are experiencing now, and we will go find heaven. And there was another story of a man who called many Filipinos, 2 million, to the streets of EDSA, which we now call people power. We all barricaded ourselves there, and he called us. And what did he promise? The rebirth of a nation. Death and rebirth. All because of the power of persuasion. Because persuasion is the power to act, and the act is always powered by persuasion. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Orly Tugob. I'm an accountant by education, a trainer by profession. I'm also a movie star by hallucination. But don't worry, I took my pill this morning. So that's a good news. And when I read the label, it says, for pregnant women. I spent 25 years in the boardroom asking for many things from the board. And I've got a list. I called some of my bosses at that time, and they gave me a list. When I asked, give me additional personnel, I got it. Give me a new office, I got it. Give me the approval for the loan, I got it. Give me a new computer, I got it. This time, I stretch it even further. Give me a raise, and I also got it. Do you want to know the secret? I want you to raise your hands if you want to know the secret. See how I persuaded you in a few seconds to raise your hands. Now you got the joke. Thank you. Okay. 25 years in the boardroom, and there's always persuasion. I am every employer's dream. I work. My employers, they just dream. put a work on my desk, and I'm going to devour it. I use persuasion to be able to get approval of anything that I want. And there's so much power in it. At the age of 30, I was already assistant vice president of a bank. When I was 32, I became president of Urban Bank, Toastmasters Club. And that led me to the World Championship of Public Speaking. For 2 consecutive years, I went there. And my very good mentor is here in front of me. And I discovered rainbow accounting. Okay. Persuasion is about competing views. If I'm going to throw this figure right here on the floor, what would you say about this figure on screen? 8? Infinity, yes. Because it's about competing views. Some people will say it's a number 8. Some people will say it's the letter 8. Some people will say it's infinity. Some would say, it's a delicious pretzel. And some would say it's the symbol of DNA. So many conflicting views. And what we wanted to happen to persuade is to accept your point of view. And that's not easy, because if you look at the screen, same man, same person, having 2 different kinds of views. Is he looking at you, or is he looking at you? You? Or me? Okay. And how do we use the persuasion? Persuasion is to move towards the consciousness of the person. Change or replace the values that is playing inside the mind, change the belief system, and make that person create a different kind of behavior. Wow. What a process. Easy? Yes. I'm going to share with you the secret. Let's take a look at the mind of the speaker, the person who's giving the information. The speaker, your goal, you should have a goal. It should be a goal-oriented task. It should be intentional. The reason why I am here is to change your mind. The reason why I'm here is for you to forget the past and move forward. And the second is, it should be an interactive, social process. It should never be some kind of intimidation, harassment, because that is no longer part of persuasion. And it should be the free will of the person. Now, the harder part is the receiver of the message. Let's take a look at what is the dynamics in this one. The receiver could be a hostile person. If you are trying to persuade somebody who has a hostile point of view, you don't immediately ask the person to take action. What you need to do is to perhaps open the mind of this person. Accept your idea. If the person is neutral, meaning in the middle, you don't have to open the mind of this person. What you need to do is build awareness. And the next person is favorable. This time, it's easy. This is the type of person where you immediately say, take action. And how do you do that? What is the most powerful tool that you can use to persuade any person? Would you like to guess? And you've been hearing it a lot since we started this morning. Do I hear any guess from the room? It starts, yes, Bjorn. Very close. Although you're far from me. It starts with letter S. Yes, story. A story is so powerful. Just like if you have a tool, a plier, a ruler, or what, the storyteller is a very important person in creating the yes or the no if you are here to make a persuasion. Stories, the words used in each of the story, when woven together, are like fabric. They bind, they attract, and you get attached to it. During lunch, while I was on my way to the men's room, I heard a conversation. It's a little bit intriguing. Would you like to find out what it is? See the story? It creates some kind of intrigue. It has a gossip factor, and people would immediately like to listen to you. This is the power of story. For the first story that I told you in 1978, this man called his people because they wanted to see a new bliss. They are tired of the pains that they are experiencing. And so when he told his people, all 900 of them, to end their lives, they did say yes. And the second person is a guy very much respected in the Philippine arena of belief. When he called the people to rally at EDSA, we all went there believing in his words. Such is the magic of persuasion. Because again, say it with me, persuasion is the power to act, and the act is powered by persuasion. Let's see how stories are created. We all remember Cinderella, do we? Yes, let's analyze the story of Cinderella. It goes something like this. I realized after hearing a lot of stories, I tried to put it in a graph. And if I will put in a graph the story of Cinderella, we have ecstasy and the misery and the time that elapsed. She started with an awful life, having evil sisters and a evil stepmother. And then she gets an invitation to go to the ball. Then she goes to the ball and enjoy the evening. But hey, it's not an everlasting evening. You've got to stop. And then soon before she realized, it was almost near 12, and she started running and she left her glass slippers. Then after that, it moves up and then back to the same awful life, but not as bad as the earlier story. And then she met the prince and the story goes up again. If I will put on a graph the stories that we heard today, you'll be surprised that each story has a form. Each has a shape. That if we will listen to the shape of the story, it goes forward and backward and forward and backward. And that is the beauty of creating your persuasive presentation. The power of presentation is about how you communicate your message. And the best tool is to create your story. I prepared my story, but I'm not interested in telling this story anymore. Do you realize why you are still sitting here? It's because of the stories that you heard today. Remember the stories that you all heard since this morning? And that must be the reason why that story persuaded you to stay on. Let's start with Shirley's story. I'm her #1 fan. When I met her in Singapore, I told myself, Shirley, I'm your #1 fan because Brenda Benz is not here. Yeah. Do you recall the story of the dots? Yes, it goes up and down until the last dot. Do you recall the story of Jonathan, the apple? Yes, another up and down story until it reached another solution. Do you recall the story of Tony? Do you recall her past? It was a figure of speech. The speech is there, and there was the figure. Okay? That was Oh, thank you. I didn't expect that, huh? Thank you. The Tony's past. The story went up and down and finally up, finding the new bliss, the new solution. Now let's go to the story of Lindsay, the operating room. You still recall it? Up and down until finally, here is the solution to this problem. I tried listening until Christian. Yes, the negotiation. He was there, talking to this person, and this is how he was behaving. Up and down, until finally he got the deal. So stories are so powerful that it has its own form and substance and shape. If we will follow the form and substance and shape of these stories, we will be able to create a magical persuasive presentation. And that's what I'm sharing to everyone this afternoon. If we take a look at the stories that we all have heard, first it started with the snapshot, your main point, and then it moved towards an encounter. It may be a comedic encounter or maybe a tragic encounter. If you've listened to Tony's encounter, she narrated somebody whom you wouldn't like. It was a tragic type of person to be with. Remember? And the second part of her story is that the second encounter, a little bit of adaptation. She now learned how to like this lady. This lady now learned how to cure her issues. And finally, the triumph or loss or the moral of the story. If we have this kind of formula, it will be easy for us to create persuasive presentation and get a yes from people that we wanted to get yes. Now, let me tell you the two items that I'd like to share about persuasive presentation. First is the factual claim. Every person who told the story here has a factual claim. They assert truth or false. Do you recall who is this lady? This lady, she created some kind of suspense. If you are this kind of lady, miserable one, would you like to be with her? And that was Tony's true or false. The second part is the value claim. The value claim tells us, is it good or bad, right or wrong, ethical or unethical? If you can recognize this, then you can move forward towards the solution. And that is how almost all of the stories that we heard are created. For persuasive story, let us all remember that the effect of this is this, it hits the heart, yes here, it hits the heart and it hits the mind. If you are relating a persuasive story and you would like to convince any person, you must hit the heart and you must hit the mind. Relating a persuasive story creates some kind of focus. People really listen to you because of the story. Everybody seemed to be glued to your story. I remember many, many years ago when I was a kid, I would spend late evening nights listening to radio program. Filipinos in the room, can you recall what this radio program is in the evening? Gabi ng lagim. Yes. It's a fright night. And we would always want to listen to this story, the story of it. It gives us a lot of focus. And remember, when I told you about the story of Shirley, about the dots, why is it that you still recall it after more than 4 hours? Because it was created through the story. You recall the story of the apple. You recall the story of the negotiation. You recall the story of Orly. And that is what makes it powerful. I'm sure you've heard this word before. Say it with me. Abracadabra. Yes. Abracadabra is an Aramaic word. It says, I create what I speak. Everybody say it. I create what I speak. Everybody please stand. Think of one item that you would like to create and say that to the person in front of you. Abracadabra and say that word. Ready? Go. You want more money? Okay, you will have that. Okay, please take your seat. Thank you. Please take your seat. Maybe last. I don't want to end my presentation by asking you to visit my webpage or my Facebook page. If you enjoyed my presentation, don't look for Orly. Look for Pops. I found a new tribe here. And this Pops gave me a meaningful story. I joined Pops in May, and I know that I'm enjoying and I take value in my membership. I don't mind even if you forget Orly. I don't mind if you will forget my story. Please, don't forget Pops. We will have to make our tribe grow even bigger. Good afternoon, everyone.